Okay, here we are. Actually, I'm going to turn myself down. Apologies. Here we are, doing the ultimate overclock tier list. In the same vein as Waste, I believe this video is going to go out, in a few weeks' time, in a time when I'm not available to be recording at all, which is useful that I'm doing something now. I imagine it'll probably be quite difficult to rope Tyler into anything extra, but especially another overclock tier list. I thought it'd be interesting. I don't know if you would ever do his own one. Probably not. I don't blame him. He doesn't have to. I'm the one who. I'm the one who is truly. I don't know. You know what? I probably should have a face cam. Actually, now I think about it. Hello. Um. So why am I doing a tier list of all the overclocks again? Well, first of all, the last one is not super up to date. I don't think. Can't actually remember when it was. Let's have a look. Oh, look at that! Wow. Let's find Barrel Vision in my. I don't think you can see who I'm subscribed to. Our most recent Overclocked tier list must be at least 2 months ago, right? Our ultimate Overclocked tier list. There's the enemies one. Did we do it all in one? I think we did, right? Crazy. Look, or was it before the tier list? Tier list. I missed it. Hold on. Be in there. Tier list. Oh, weapons tier list 9.5 hours. Oh wow, that quick. 11 months ago as well. Okay, starting to become outdated. And I thought it'd be interesting if I did it completely by myself because, first of all, it should be pretty short, and it's really just distilling my thoughts down into something much more concise and unbothered. Probably even less objective than normal though. I think Tyler's, even though I tend to disagree with him a lot, I feel like he's probably not wrong most of the time, and that's why us meeting in the middle provides probably the most objective that we can get. But yeah, this was well, this is going to come out a lot later than their video did. This is obviously inspired by Waste and Lazy Maybe's attempt at this. We would not be doing another one of these anytime soon. That didn't happen. And as you can see, part of this isn't the most serious video either. That's why I'm doing it on my own as well. I just want to bang this out, sort of just something to do in my free time. I don't mind doing it. I want to do it, and I wouldn't want to force anyone else to do it with me. But as you can see, we're using this exact same rating system as they are, which is why I wanted to do it. I mainly wanted to see what my mirror image would be of their tier list. I haven't actually finished the video, but this it's very strange. It makes me feel really arrogant because it's sort of like all the stuff that they say that I agree with, it makes me feel validated, and all the stuff that they disagree with, it makes me think that they're wrong. They're stupid for thinking that, and yet I'm like, yes, you're a genius when they say something that I agree with, which is really arrogant. But nevertheless, we've got to get through a lot of overclocks, and I am going to reference Carl.gg if I have to. I noticed that I don't think they did in their video, which I thought was kind of a mistake. Together, they got a pretty in-depth knowledge of the game. I think they knew enough, but some stuff that they didn't point out that I thought was like, you shouldn't have missed that necessarily. Although I think I've got a pretty decent knowledge where I can rank these reasonably well. Unfortunately, they're not actually in order. I'm actually going to go ahead and do that. Oh, well, that took longer than I expected, but they're all in order now. I guess I should briefly explain the methodology that I'm using to rank these, because I know in their video, Waste and Lazy maybe they kind of they included modded difficulties. I will obviously not be doing that, even slightly. I don't think it's entirely wrong to do that. At the same time, it didn't feel disclosed enough. But there's going to be a lot of people watching that video who don't quite understand that a lot of Waste's opinions come from modded difficulties. It's not that those are invalid, but they are invalid when it comes to the base game, which is very odd. So my personal perspective is Hazard 5 solo. right? That's how I play the game 95% of the time, 90, maybe even a little bit higher. And the way I'm going to try and rank them is pretty much from that perspective. Although there are some notable differences between playing, solo and multiplayer that do have an effect on the strength of certain things, and I will obviously point those out. There's also the fact that this tier list is not 100% up to date. The same number of overclocks are there. Some of them aren't in the right places. There's some that have changed in category, and that's perfectly fine. It doesn't really matter. Even manual guidance cutoff for the Hurricane, which has been changed to an unstable rocket barrage, that's fine because it's not like it still exists. That's just what that is. In this instance, the clean manual guidance cutoff is the unstable rocket barrage. Fine. Anyway, I need to stop wasting time. Because I'm not going to spend much time on any individual overclock. I mean, it's probably going to be individual ones that I do, but not every single one. Some of them I might spend no time on, like the tanks, which is C, because it's only slightly better than base. And lighter tanks is just increased ammo. There's a weird sort of subcategory of overclocks, specifically clean ones where it's like ammo and reload speed, and these are some of the best ones in the game. Actually, certainly some of the best cleans. This is on the lower end because it doesn't actually increase reload speed. Not that there's anything wrong with the flamethrower's reload speed, but it might actually be higher if it was that. But it's only slightly better than base, which I think is exactly what they said in their video. Sticky additive is interesting because C would make the most sense. And I think I'm actually going to put it down to approximate to base, which I think they did too, which is fair. It seems odd, some of the ones I'm going to put in this category, but that's because I believe they're functionally the same as that, by the way. That's why. Also, I'm not going to talk about sticky additive. This is just off the cuff. Compact feed valves is almost identical to lighter tanks. I believe it is actually the same amount of ammo added. That's the thing. That's the only strange thing about it. Yeah, it's actually the same amount of ammo, which is interesting because it has actually multiple downsides, which is why obviously an increased magazine size, which is why I can't put it higher than lighter tanks. I think it is slightly better than base than lighter tanks is, but I don't think they're truly different in that you could take either one for the same reason. Fuel stream diffuser is interesting because they put it higher than these two, and I'm not sure if I'm going to do that. It's great. It's a really good overclock actually, and they talked about it in ways that I didn't necessarily think about. I've never really used sticky flames outside of sticky fuel, and I'm going to try that. And I think I've always thought that fuel stream diffuser was kind of good anyway. I went for a hissy fit, but I think I'm actually going to put it in B. It's probably my favourite flamethrower overclock. So, I mean, I use lighter tanks more often than not, but whatever. Face melter, thank God I can do this. I don't have to pretend anymore because, the gods have spoken. Face melter is worse than nothing. I don't get it. There's no reason to use it. It's just terrible. It's awful. Sucks. Hate it. My opinion, it should you could even make it a shorter range, but what it should actually have like a wider flame, and it should do even more damage as well, in my opinion. Maybe do even more damage to exposed flesh. Both over the face melter thing. Not weak points, just unarmored flesh, which obviously you can't really do because it goes through armor anyway. Sticky fuel, I'm going to give a solid A because I'm not a sticky fuel lover and I never will be. But I understand it is quite strong. I'm under no illusions. This is not one where I think everyone's batshit insane for saying that it's strong, because it definitely is. There's absolutely no denying that. I don't know what to say about it because it's just not something I particularly enjoy using. But yeah, I'm under no delusion here. I know it's quite powerful. A tier is the best it's going to get though. We're on the cryo cannon now. Improved thermal efficiency, which is it's just a little bit more ammo and a little bit more uptime. Basically, increased magazine size. That's why it uses that icon. Now, this is the best overclock on the cryo cannon. Actually, this is something that our previous tier list lacked. Was the acknowledgement of this. Recent videos when we put together those tables did acknowledge this though. I can't remember what we gave it, but at the same time, it's not better enough than base to really be broken, and I don't think it is broken at all. I think it's just best thing to pick. Unlike Tune Cooler, which I think is going to be a solid C. I don't think it's as good a Fuel Stream Diffuser in its weapon. Tune Cooler is good. It's good. It is better than base. It has notable downsides of charge up time. It's pretty damn punishing. But yeah, I want to take a quick look at flow rate expansion, which because I'm not sure if it's going to be approximately equivalent to base or worse than nothing. Don't know. Flow rate expansion just increases flow rate but decreases uptime, which is just really pointless, especially in the face of either of these other two or some of the others that are coming up actually. It's really, really pointless, but I think it stops at pointless, which is why I'm going to leave it in equivalent to base. Ice Spear, B. Ice Spear is actually A. Ice Spear is quite good. Ice Spear is really good. It doesn't have any actual downsides. It's technically a clean. Well, not technically, but it really is clean. It's just the fact that Ice Spear uses lots of ammo to do Ice Spear, which is fine. It is a lot. It could probably be slightly less, but it also, just in general, the trade-off you're making is just being overall more flexible and more self-dependent, which point that they made in their video. I acknowledge that. But it's probably my favourite Cryo Cannon Overclock, actually. I like it a lot. Ice Spear. It doesn't take away anything because obviously improved thermal efficiency. I've talked about how it's the best thing. We agree it's the best thing on the Cryo Cannon, but keep in mind it's not actually increasing freezing power because the base freezing power is good enough. So Ice Spear is really not suffering. Cold Radiance is going to do all the work. Then you can just delete whatever you just froze. Even if it's an oppressor, you have enough time. I would recommend though for oppressors, you know, it's like they're going to unfreeze pretty quickly, and you should be shooting through them because the ice path that you create can freeze. So you should probably switch out at the last second, or just stop shooting at the last second and activate Ice Spear. Maybe if you can learn it, it's probably worth it. It's better than actually freezing it directly and then having it unfreeze before you can actually use Ice Spear. Ice Storm, which is massive damage but reduced. Is it reduced ammo? Yes, some reduced ammo, but also we lose a lot of freezing power. This fucking sucks. This is worse than nothing. It's same as Face Melter. I can't believe those guys didn't acknowledge that or didn't see that, I suppose. I think Ice Storm is actually god awful. It's easily the worst thing on the Cryo Cannon. There's no reason for you to be doing that with the Cryo Cannon. They said it's better. It's a better fragile. It's definitely not. I don't think. But either way, you don't need it to be. If you want that, you've got drills. Basically, you got drills, and your secondary should be pairing with your Cryo Cannon anyway. You should be using EPC or Wave Cooker. So, Ice Storm, not needed. Big downgrade. Simple as. Okay, onto the Snowball. Snowball recently got buffed. It's big nerf from a while back. It's still active though. Can't one-shot breeders. Snowball. Right. Yes. Hello. Yeah, I actually don't know where to rate Snowball, and which is why, but it's probably better than base. At the same time, it might not be. It's interesting. I can't think of many uses for it personally. I think C might be the best place to put it though. Yeah, that's probably correct. Okay. Anyway, now I'm really gonna rustle some jimmies. Maybe. We're on the sludge pump now. Hydrogen ion additive, which is a small boost to the sludge DPS, the corrosion DPS, and the slowdown effect. I agree that the slowdown is more noticeable, but in general, I really like using this thing to stack damage over time effects. It feels pretty good. It's definitely going to be effective. Like, it's definitely going to be a benefit against bigger targets. I think the build that it complements is what brings it up from C. I think it's objectively at least C. I think it is better than base, definitely. Even if some of the effects are slightly minimal, but it's still, yeah, it's quite good. You really can't go wrong with it. Basically, obviously, it is overkill against grunts, but there is actually a way to build it to make it one-shot guards, which is actually awesome. I actually recommend trying that. That's really cool. You have to take the increased effect duration, which is hard to do because you're sacrificing a lot of ammo to do that. But you actually wind up dealing a lot more total damage if you use it on things that soak up most of the damage. In that build, a grunt's going to be like dead way before it's actually done doing all the damage that it can. Either way, I think there's multiple great builds for hydrogen ion additive. It's I like it a lot. I don't think I actually have a favorite sludge pump overclock, but I really like this one. AG mixture I also like, although it's just going to see. I think it's slightly better than base. I think the effects it provides are noticeable. Doesn't actually make you much stronger particularly, but it is quite good. That range is useful, genuinely. It's only slightly better than base, though. I think it's still very much so worth using, I should say. It's just not a huge boost. I actually have a build that does use it, and I enjoy that for some reason. Because it doesn't make the sludge pump any weaker, and it just fills a strange little niche of using it in really open caves. And I like it a lot. That's all I have to say. AG mixture. Volatile impact mixture. Hey. Making me wonder what actually are going to be the S tiers. Because volatile impact mixture is amazing. It could be the best. I'm not sure. I do still somewhat. I do find it somewhat unfavorable the way that it sort of collapses what the sludge pump actually is. Really does take away the damage over time effects, but in exchange you get a lot of good damage. It works with both single target and area damage very well, both of them. In fact, I actually use area damage to do single target damage with Bristling Necrosis. It's very, very strange, I admit. But it is a very, very strong overclock. It lets you get things done much, much quicker, which is good. Everything's going to die to your sludge anyway, but this is also a good option. Great against Terror Hordes and Grunt Hordes and the type of enemy, really, actually. It's quite strong. Notable downsides in terms of how it strips away a bit of the sludge pump's identity, but in general, that doesn't stop it from being a great overclock. Much like Disperser Compound, which really does embolden what the sludge pump is. It's the perfect sludge pump overclock, really, for what the sludge pump is supposed to be. More puddles with more sludge, which is exactly what we want. It's, in my opinion, best complemented by the EPC. Don't really have a wave cooker build for it specifically, although the new neurocorrosive catalyst for the Sabata works very well with it as well. Is it S tier? Is a very complicated question for me personally. Maybe not for some other people. I don't think I'm going to put it in S tier because, oh god, this is tough. It doesn't really have downsides, I guess, and it's just a really big boost, and it's good in pretty much every situation. Not beneficial in literally every situation, though. That's the thing. Robots is probably the worst thing to take for the sludge pump. Rockpox as well. I think I'm going to keep it in A. I think these two are actually pretty definitively equal in the eyes of most people, which is really cool. Right, Goob Bomber Special. I don't know. It's different. It's not weaker. It's interesting. It's got something going on. Something. I don't really use it. I kind of understand why you would. I really miss, I can't say I miss it, because I never got to experience it. The sort of thing where it could do a ridiculous amount of damage if you had all of the fragments drop onto the same enemy. I want that to come back. I think that's worth bringing back, genuinely. I think it would be fair to Goob Bomber Special to give it that. It's too different for me to really call it a big boost. It's just weird, it just travels along and drops fragments as it flies. With no real downsides, it's kind of just it's just a big change. Not actually, no real penalties here, and it's not a real upgrade either. It's really bizarre, which is why I think equivalent to base is probably the only place I can actually put it. Yeah, it's just too different. Like, it serves some kind of niche, and it's still kind of strong, but in some situations, losing out what the sludge pump is good at can be a bit of a downside, so it's not free from problems either. I don't think I can put it anywhere else than that, though. I can put Sludge Blast in worse than nothing. Quite happily now, thanks to the guys. As in, I'm free to do that anyway, but I feel more validated in doing that. Well, yeah, it's just not very good, is it? I'm really glad they put into words a lot of the things that I kind of couldn't. In that it's just a waste of your primary. You know, we have things like Ice Spear, but that does not take away what the crowd cannon does at all. The Sludge Blast main form of crowd control is completely eliminated by Sludge Blast, and you lose a lot of ammo as well. I think it would be very, very strong if you had a lot of ammo still, with the same amount of ammo. Unfortunately, you don't, and it's just really strange. It's just not what the charge shot should be used for. Um, I don't quite know how you would improve it. I do think the ammo penalty is misplaced though, so maybe it comes down to that. Either way, I'm very happy to be able to put it in worse than nothing. It's not actually the worst thing ever. It's an interesting and kind of strong effect. It's strong. It's very strong against certain things as well. But done. Worse than nothing. Okay, it's the barter. Chain hit. Procs equivalent to base, obviously. Homebrew powder. It's technically slightly better. Oversized magazine, equivalent to base. I know the guys liked it. We're not the biggest fans of it. I think it's okay. I like using it. It's not a true upgrade though. That's the thing, especially with the decreased reload time. Yeah, I guess the best thing for it would probably be Neurocorrosive Catalyst. You can probably get a good amount of stacks on an enemy with oversized magazine, but yeah. Automatic fire is obviously a beloved one. Not by me. I can't call something that isn't actually an upgrade. But its fun factor and the way it is an upgrade in terms of ease of use or just overall EPS, I guess, even if it doesn't actually increase damage, I can't quite ignore it, really. For a weapon like Sabata, the way this changes how it feels is very, very impactful. I cannot deny that at all, which is why I'm going to just put it in B and leave it there and not think about it anymore. Explosive Reload, S tier. Wow, the first one is from the Sabata. Because of how much it really does improve it. It introduces so many cool breakpoints. My favourite is still Web Spitters in one shot, Grunts and Acid Spitters in 2 shots and things like that. It's just fantastic. It's only been improved by the recent changes, given that with Neurocorrosive Catalyst you can actually apply it through armor, which probably shouldn't be the case. But now it's actually worth taking with the Sludge Pump. It used to mainly be restricted to the Flamethrower. Even then, it was still fantastic. It's the best overclock on the Sabata for so many reasons. Everyone knows it's strong, and it kind of just stops there. Tranquilizer rounds. Watch this, guys. Ooh. I love tranquilizer rounds. I think it's quite good. It's underrated in my opinion. It's not for crowd control. It's just for disabling individual targets. I like it sort of like more of like a heavy hitter pistol. You know, not a revolver or anything, but still slightly more of a heavy hitter. And I actually am going to bring it down to C. I realise I really can't call it better or on the same level as automatic fire. I think it's really disingenuous. It is definitely better than base though, despite its noticeable downsides of, that magazine size is felt, and so is their rate of fire. They don't bother me too much, but they are not totally ignorable penalties, unfortunately. I have to acknowledge them. Right. And I could move on now. I don't think I've got anything more to say about Tranquilizer rounds. I do recommend using it though. I think it's quite underrated. EPC, energy rerouting, is definitely better than base. Right, this increases charge speed and ammo, which is great for pretty much every build. In fact, I think this is part of their logic talking here that I'm not putting it higher than C. Like I said, great for every build that you should be using. Which is Burning Nightmare and in Containment Field. Simple as. Lots of ammo to do that with, increased charge speed helps too. Or lots of just shots that can temp shock enemies. Or lots more chances to use Flying Nightmare to cleave through frozen enemies. It's up there, EPC. I think it should definitely be an A. It does a lot for the EPC, genuinely. Actually. Yeah, actually, no, I think A is perfectly fine. Magnetic cooling unit is MCU, equivalent to base. I believe it's just called cooling stuff. It's increased cooling rate and reduced heat per second while charged, which is actually not terrible. But given what we can take instead, it's definitely equivalent to base. Okay, heat pipe. This is interesting. That's probably not where it's going to be. Increased charge shot efficiency. We use 2 less ammo per charge shot. With increased charge speed as well. But you actually increase the amount of heat from that charge shot produces and the amount of heat per second. Heat pipe is very, very difficult to use. I don't think it's worse than nothing. But I do not think it's the best thing in the world at all. I think it's pretty close to being bad. Those downsides are insane. But I think there are some builds where being able to get off more and more charge shots is... I don't know, man. Maybe it is worse than nothing. Because I feel like whatever you could use it for, energy reroute is just going to do you better, which increases charge rate and ammo, which basically increases the number of charge shots you can do. Yeah, sorry, heat pipe, it's over. Heavy hitter. Heavy hitter is crikey. Heavy hitter is really good. Really good. It's interesting. It's really good without having anything to do with charge shots whatsoever. It's entirely for Burning Nightmare, but only for the actual burning normal shots part of it. Which allows you to temp drop things much easier, especially bigger targets, but also pick off high value targets easily just with itself, basically. Noticeable downsides, yes, but the downsides are not necessarily in itself, they're more so just in the lack of flexibility that it has. Which is kind of just restricted to doing those things I mentioned. Can't really be used with anything other than the cryo cannon or sludge pump. Well, actually, that's perfectly fine. I just realized, oh yeah, sludge pump. Sets fuel on fire really easily. Just complements that by being able to set things on fire quickly. Heavy hitter's really strong. I don't think it's the only thing, though. I don't think it's objectively the best pick for the APC all the time. Where, like, the Sabata, I think explosive reload is the best pick all the time. That's kind of what S tier comes down to, I think. I'm coming to realise. Overcharger, worse than nothing. Jesus Christ, what a piece of shit. I feel so bad for it. Overcharger is also the overclock that makes me remember that charge shot does direct damage, which is pretty bizarre. So good for it there, I guess. It does noticeable damage, kind of, but it's just still really bad. I think it even needs to be quite a bit stronger, or maybe just not actually increase the amount of ammo it uses. I think that's a pretty big problem. But yeah, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Distant Plasma is really good. I do not think it dominates. I think these three altogether are quite strong in their own rights. Distant Plasma is purely for thin containment field, though. That's the thing. Well, Heavy Hitter is purely for Burning Nightmare. And that's why I don't think either one comes ahead of the other. But energy rerouting is for both. And here's the reason why. They talk about thin containment field like it's this overpowering thing that basically it's the only thing you should use on your driller secondaries. Almost how they made it sound. Which I think is just complete nonsense, in my opinion. They think it completely overrides anything on the DPC, which I just think is absolutely insane. I don't think it's even close to as bad as the PGL's problem with incendiary rounds, incendiary compound. But persistent plasma is still very strong. In fact, I use it with thin containment field, but I'm not good at using thin containment field at all. But even then, I think persistent plasma is very, very good. I like it a lot. It's great in pretty much every situation against pretty much every type of enemy. And I think it's very respectable. Easy A tier, but no higher. Doesn't completely dominate. Alright, I need to go get something to eat. Oh wow, it got darker. Anyway, I am well fed now, with some tea by my side, as a Brit. But onto the wave cooker, my favourite weapon. My favourite driller secondary. Liquid cooling system is actually like a 3-point clean. Weird. It's got 3 bonuses, all to the heating. But it's just equivalent to base. That's not wave cooker, basically. That's just not the wave cooker. Nothing wrong with this actually for a temp shock build. That the temp shock build is contained within the base weapon, but in my opinion, you should still definitely be using mega power supply for cryo or contamination for flamethrower. So sorry. Super focus lens is definitely better than base, although not by a huge amount. not by a massive amount. It's plus 50% damage at yeah, with enemies within 4 meters of you. That's actually quite a lot of damage. But it's still not a lot, as in it's a lot added, but it doesn't actually make the wave cooker deal a huge amount of damage. It's very strange. But it is definitely an upside if you feel like using a base wave cooker with the sludge pump, or boiler ray. Perfectly good with boiler ray as well. It's actually a perfectly fine overclock. It's not anywhere near the peak of the wave cooker, but it's good enough to exist. The fusion ray, I think, is equivalent to base. Tyler would probably murder me for this. Not that he actually uses it, so he's a real charlatan there. It penetrates enemies and has an extra slowdown effect that can stack on top of the one you can already inflict with the wave cooker if you want. Fusion ray. What's penetration really going to do? Some kind of aircraft. Yeah, what's blow through going to do on the wave cooker? Not just that you can already hit multiple enemies, but the effects that you want already hit multiple enemies. I can, boiler ray's obviously not going to work because you're actually reducing damage with its overclock. And then temp shock spreads and contagion transmitter spreads as well. So, sorry, diffusion ray, you're actually worse than nothing. Oh dear, what a surprise. Mega power supply. Could have put it in S. I'm not going to though. I don't think the wave cooker has an absolute peak. That's why. Mega power supply is very good for. Oh shit. Shit. Maybe it is S. Damn it. God damn it. Oh, this is so dumb. It's actually so dumb. Doesn't it increase like heat production? Makes overheat longer and you actually cool slower as well. Reduce cooling rate. Damn. Okay. Because okay, it's not actually that conducive to a sludge pump build. You probably shouldn't use it with that. But it's good with boiler rate as well. I think it has to stay in A, especially because I actually think gamma contamination is better for temp shock on the flamethrower. So there is that as well. Blistering necrosis is interesting. It's obviously I hope we understand kind of how it works. I mean, I feel like you know what it is. I can't really tell you exactly how it works. Spawn weak points in enemies, and then you can do stuff with them. For Driller himself, it's on average actually very ineffectual. There's not actually many ways to take advantage of this in a way that's really impactful. The only way really is actually just use volatile impact mixture. The reason I'm putting it in B is because the effect is just about strong enough to get it there, but it's got a lot of problems. So it's getting in B purely on the fact that I have a very strong build that uses it. That's all. It's actually got a lot of issues. Its chance, well, mainly its chance to proc is just annoying. That's it. It's not much to it actually. Blistering necrosis. I wish there was more to it because there definitely is. But it's quite simple in terms of actually placing it. That's how good it is. It's just really walking a thin line between being like really bad and really amazing. Gamma contamination, on the other hand, is definitively great. It's awesome. It's actually really strong on its own. I think it's one of the strongest. I think it's one of the strongest secondaries on its own. Gamma contamination wave cooker. I actually used it in a Hazard 4 mission once. I think it was just gamma contamination, and I got by just fine. It was really cool, actually. Yeah, it makes it very strong on its own, great picking off high-value targets, and also actually, if you widen the lens, which obviously it does actually reduce your lens size, but if you do widen the lens in some way, mainly with the alternate firing mode, you should almost definitely take more ammo of this. But if you do widen the lens, you can actually affect a lot of enemies at once, and they all start to irradiate each other as well. It's pretty strong in that case, but it's also amazing for stacking status effects with the sludge pump on single targets. It's awesome at that. It's also great, in my opinion. It's the superior way to use temperature shock with the flamethrower, because it actually often leads to a lot of interesting breakpoints where some enemies are left on a sliver of health after being temp shocked, but they'll actually die to the radiation. It feels really great, and it really doesn't hurt your ammo efficiency. In fact, even though it reduces your ammo, gamma contamination is a very ammo efficient overclock. It's awesome. I think it and Mega Power Supply represent the peak of the wave cooker, which I guess introduces an argument that maybe take these 4 that we've just done These could be S tiers, but I feel like that's just bloating S tier. S tier needs to be reserved for the real actual peaks, to be honest. Um, there might be one coming up. Well, there'll be more of them, don't worry. Okay. Engineer, Warthog. Stunner for the Warthog. Which is a clean that lets you stun on any body part and also increases damage against stun enemies by 30%. It's pretty good. It's yeah, it's pretty good. It's actually definitively better than base. I think unlike a lot of these, which are sort of a bit more dubious, I think it's actually going to be. I think it's slightly overrated by anyone who thinks it's good, though. Like, I feel like the people who are really Stunner fans are a bit misguided, personally, which that includes Waste. I don't understand it. I think the stun on the Warthog is very strong, but Stunner itself is not a needed boon, really. It's good, though. It's good, and I would not blame you for taking it. I just don't think it's all that. Unlike lightweight magazines, which I think is actually up there, I think lightweight magazines could actually be an A tier potentially. Because personally, I believe that the Warthog has more than enough damage output. The lightweight magazines just feels great in general. It's really awesome, and it's great to take either extra ammo or extra damage with. I think you could go either way with it. It's a beautiful little overclock. Makes the Warthog just feel better in pretty much every single way. The increased reload time, increased reload speed lets you take recoil. You might normally be able to do, and it also lets you take rate of fire instead of magazine size. It's great with turret whip or automatic fire. I think lightweight magazines basically a flawless overall significant strength upgrade for a clean actually. So I think A tier is actually a very appropriate place for it, genuinely. And if you disagree with me, I don't care. I don't care. I think it's really good. Magnetic pellet alignment is also very good. It's pretty great, actually. Difficult to rank. It might be on the same level as Stunner. It might be slightly better. It's probably better. It can let you more consistently one-shot Mactera spawn and grunts and things like that, and just do overall much better damage overall to enemies with large health pools too. It makes you better against everything that you use the Warthog against. So I actually think A tier is appropriate. Downsides are pretty minimal. It's literally just decreased rate of fire, but also not by as much as it suggests anyway. So I think A tier is actually very appropriate. Same for Psycho Overload. The Warthog actually has a bunch of good overclocks, just no interesting ones. Yeah, Psycho Overload is very good. Massive DPS boost at close range because you get increased damage and a big increase in rate of fire. The upsides are significant. In my opinion, actually more significant than they would sound just by the numbers. It's only +1 damage and it's just rate of fire as well, which in a vacuum I don't value that highly. And the downsides are also very significant, but it's still slightly usable at mid range. But also just how you just don't need to use it at mid range. That's the thing. You just don't need to. Just save it for close range when it's at its best. Psycho Overload is very strong. In no universe, to me, it's actually the strongest overclock on the Warthog because of its downsides, but it's still comfortably at home in A tier, in my opinion. Unlike mini shells, which is a really difficult one to rate. Actually, I know it's not as good as I've said it was. It just isn't. It's stupid. It's not actually that great. It does allow you to achieve the highest total damage, but not by a huge amount. And losing the stun is actually really bad. Genuinely, it's something that's sort of underrated. I think Tyler doesn't quite get it either, which is fine, I guess. I get it. Losing the stun is pretty bad. It's interesting though to me that the big problem you could easily point out is how you have too much ammo, and that's why you have so much total damage, because you literally have too much ammo, and you're not going to be able to get through all of it. I can come back at you with some numbers where you actually get the highest total damage by taking increased pellet count instead of increased max ammo. You actually only have about 168 max ammo, I think it is, or 118 total, I think, which is not a huge amount higher than what you can achieve with lightweight magazines. You can still get through it fairly fast, especially if you take automatic fire, which I actually kind of like. It's sort of like a shredder build, almost like a shredder rounds simulator. It's actually okay. I think mini shells can be an upgrade. I think I would be doing my own experiences with the game a disservice if I didn't put it in at least C. I definitely don't think it can go higher, but I do think it's a definitive upgrade in enough circumstances to not be like negligible, basically. Unlike these next two, and the stubby is a weapon with quite a few issues. I don't think it's as bad as its haters think, though. I think its cleans are, however, completely negligible. Super Slim Rounds increases magazine size and reduces space spread, which is terrible, but frankly, accuracy isn't a huge problem, especially when our best overclock doesn't, actually decreases accuracy. Well-oiled machine, I think, increases reload speed and rate of fire. I think it's reload speed. It is, actually. And the stubby's reload is actually... the stubby's reload is actually not the best, actually. But well-oiled machine is not doing you any favors over EM Refi Booster, which is, I think, is the best one. I think it is the best one. It's just so good for gun feel and all of those things. Big increase in damage. Obviously, it's not direct damage, so we don't get weak point bonuses. It actually adds electric damage, and 2 electric damage, that is, and a lot of rate of fire. It's me. But it also doesn't burn through it. It's a very effective weapon when you take EM Refi Booster, the stubby. I think that is the best version of it. I really do enjoy using it. I should probably use it a little bit more, actually, basically. Yeah. It's really decent for single target, or I say decent because really it's the best you can do with the stubby. Shreds smaller enemies though, like Mactera and Grunts, all those kind of things. Great against Wardens too. Fine against Praetorians. Not good against Oppressors because of their electric resistance, which I think should be removed. I think they should resist the damage, but they should still be able to be electrocuted for a little bit. So you're not completely losing out. So unfortunately, it does lose out against the true things that you need single target damage for, but it improves the gun feel so much that I can't not put it in A. It's also just fine for AoE builds as well if you want to use electric arc because your output is very fast. So it feels pretty good for that. Sort of like a hybrid grunt shredder, combining electric arc with just actually shooting them with bullets. Not bad. Lightweight rounds increases ammo by a good amount. It's not actually insane proportional to how much base ammo you have, but it's quite a bit. Reduced rate of fire and damage. I have a renewed respect for this overclock. I used to basically see it as kind of mostly useless, but with the kind of thing where you can like use it to proc a lot of electric arcs if you like, although quite slowly still. Now I do think that's actually a valid use for it, but if that was it, it would have been maybe equivalent to base, see it best. But recently, I actually found myself enjoying taking direct damage with it, all direct damage, which actually you can achieve a higher total damage with EM Refire Booster. We need to think about the fact that we're actually achieving higher direct damage, which actually means we're going to be doing more weak point damage. If you hit all your shots on a weak point, you would actually do more damage with this build, I'm suggesting. And this build might show its face very soon on the channel. The next engineer build, which will actually be already out by the time you're watching. Yeah. So yeah, lightweight rounds is actually just fine. It really is. It's not a problem, I don't think. I think it's actually weirdly flexible. I don't think it feels great. That's the biggest problem. It does not feel good, especially in contrast to EM Refire Booster. When you're losing out on rate of fire, and EM Refire Booster adds so much, lightweight rounds feels really weak. It feels weak. Even with the direct damage build. I mean, I like that as kind of like a slow, heavy hitter type thing, but even then, I don't feel particularly strong while using it. In fact, I am actually going to move it down to a C because I don't truly recommend it, but I actually don't think it's useless either. That side position. Turret EM Discharge is the other best thing to do. It's insane. It is actually kind of insane. It's not the most intuitive thing to use, which is the main reason it doesn't get an automatic S, but its power is pretty ridiculous. You shoot a turret, big electric explosion that you can proc very, very frequently. It necessitates taking increased electrocution chance, which is not a problem because you're kind of going for an AoE thing anyway. Because increased electrocution chance means you're going to be proccing more electric arcs. Nothing wrong with that. Great for crowd control. Decent single target only because of the fear, but obviously you're not going to be doing anything to oppressors, and very little to bosses as well. But you could probably still take it in any mission type and do okay. Turret EM Discharge is very, very strong. Turret arc, however, is worse than nothing. The effect itself is actually surprisingly strong, and I think anyone who can actually make good use of it has my eternal respect. Unfortunately, we lose out on a lot of max ammo and rate of fire. It really is worse than the base gun. The gun itself is much worse. This overclock. And turret arc itself is not intuitive enough. It's way worse than turret aim discharge in terms of how complicated it is to use. It really disappoints me that both the stubby and stable overclocks are completely dedicated to the turrets. I wish we had some kind of variety there. But we don't. Stuck with this. And I think the reason why it goes so low is because it is mainly because it's just really just not worth using in the face of EM discharge. EM discharge is really strong, while turret arc is not. And they are basically doing the same thing. It is interesting when you have more than 2 turrets on the field and you can use them, but it's just not great still. It's just not great. It can do a surprising amount of work. I think calling it equivalent to base would be somewhat misleading. That's the problem. It's just misleading. It's not entirely untrue. You can definitely do more damage and get more kills than you would with a base or clean stubby, but it's still hugely problematic and needs to be reworked entirely in my opinion. Okay, famously my favourite weapon, but not really, is the smart rifle, Eraser, clean, which is actually approximately base. Because Eraser increases magazine size, which is fine, but it actually increases the max number of locks, and for pretty much every build that most people use, increasing the max number of locks is a really bad thing. It's actually not good at all. It's not the worst thing in the world, and we do have increased magazine size, which is why it's just about getting equivalent to base, but yeah. Speaking of truly equivalent to base, armor break module. I didn't realize this until I watched their video actually. The armor break module, or actually the smart rifle itself, has an inherent armor breaking for locked on shots, which is interesting, and it makes armor break module even more useless. I don't actually hate armor break module for some reason, although there's no actual reason to use it. That's the thing. It's plus 1,250% armor breaking. What? Actually, I think it was Waste who made a funny point about the fact that maybe it's because one of the guy who made it thought, oh, doesn't armor breaking do a lot of damage to dreadnoughts or something? And that's the logic there, which would be kind of funny. I think an interesting idea though for it in that lens would be if it could do more damage to shields and things like that, or through buffs, like as it could do more damage through Warden's buffs, and also through just the dreadnought shields in general. That would be pretty cool actually. Yeah, maybe it could be a counterpoint to Seeker rounds where it does that stuff and also even bypasses enemy invisibility frames or something. Trying to figure out other examples. Maybe you could even like shoot menaces when they're under the ground. I don't know. Either way, it's really negligible. Unlike the upcoming ones, explosive chemical rounds is not an S tier. I'm sorry, I can't allow that. I just can't. I know it's good, but I can't allow something that is just completely. It's just far too transformative of what engineers' primaries are meant to be. I really can't allow an S tier for this, even though it's probably just objectively the case. It's not anywhere near as efficient as people think. It just isn't. And it really only works when paired with the shard diffractor, in my opinion. And I think that's really sad. Obviously, that's not a huge problem. You know, you've got to treat it as if, you know, you've got to think about it in its absolute peak, which would be with the shard diffractor. It's not actually a true detracting factor that can only really be used with one weapon, but I don't like that fact anyway. I don't like it. I do like the overclock itself. I don't mind using it with the shard diffractor at all. But I do not think it's even close to the peak that people think it is. You know, like they said it's actually completely broken. They didn't know how it got into the game. What? It's not even close to that strong. Not broken at all. It's good. Just not broken. I can't deny it is one of the smart rifle's best assets, though. So it gets an easy A. I'm just not allowing it to be this S. I think this is really a really strange thing that's been sort of bandied about by everyone. And I've had enough of it, frankly. Seeker rounds. I've also had enough of people shitting on Seeker rounds. Seeker rounds is quite strong. If you don't understand why, then you confuse me. Do not see why ignoring armor gives you more damage. Because it does. It just does. How it works. You're not losing damage to armor. Therefore, you're doing more damage than you would normally. Simple. Obviously, that armor breaking thing about locked on shots still applies, but we don't have to think about that at all. and obviously you can hit things from any angle and from behind walls, which is great, great stuff. Sneak around is very good. Downside is noticeable. I believe it has a reload speed penalty, which is negligible, but it's mainly the rate of fire penalty that you feel the most. Doesn't actually make it worse in my opinion, but it's still very noticeable. Sneak around is good though, very underrated, only because it doesn't represent the peaks of the smart rifle. I think it's the third best. Best, of course, is Executioner, obviously. That's an easy S tier. The damage this thing does is pretty ridiculous, basically. It's great picking off small enemies with the right positioning. It's great against everything. Positioning is a big problem though, almost bringing it down. It's an S tier because it is the undisputed king of the smart rifle. That's why it's an S tier. It's not devoid of problems though. You know? Like, you can't getting that benefit of all that damage is pretty difficult against a lot of enemies. Mainly things like wardens is probably the worst offender for that. But when you actually get in the position to do that damage, and against things like dreadnoughts and all that kind of thing, it's really, really strong. It's incredible, really. And I recommend it wholeheartedly. It's just fantastic. Good on Executioner. Unlike Neural Lasso, which is worse than nothing. I can't believe they said it's even approximate to base. I thought that was insulting. Neural Lasso is absolute ass, completely pointless, just awful. It lets you slow down enemies based on with an increased slowdown effect based on the number of locks you have on those enemies, but it also, that's all it does. And it also, you can't actually hold locks forever. I think you should objectively be able to hold locks forever with this. That makes no sense. It's so counterintuitive that you can't. At least let me hold them in place. Actually. Just a horrible idea through and through. Not actually the worst concept in the world. I believe there's actually something to it, but execution-wise, nothing. No reason to take this. So please don't. Awful. Terrible. Unlike Clean Sweep, which is an easy beat tier, Clean Sweep is, in my opinion, actually slightly underrated because it doesn't represent what most people see as the peaks of the PGL. Although, in my opinion, it is actually another peak. I'm going to give it an A tier, actually, which seems insane. Although explosive chemical rounds, honestly, for me, that's just gratuitous. I could actually put it lower personally, which might make me insane. But Clean Sweep is very strong. It is, in my opinion, actually the best way to crowd clear with the PGL. Moves a lot of other aspects. You can't freely shoot around at like a spitboard or something like that to get back damage bonuses or just some decent damage over time, or use it to like casually fear things because you have so many shots with RJ250. But getting the most radius possible, but also being able to set on fire literally anything weaker than a Praetorian, even without spiky grenades, is highly commendable. Clean Sweep is amazing at just destroying massive hordes of enemies with more uses of it than Fat Boy. I actually have to give it A tier. I think this is a really slept on Overclock, actually, and I wish people would realize how good it is. Its damage is actually doing, like I mentioned, it's how you can set guards on fire with one shot, basically. And you don't actually have to take any damage up for that. You can go all radius and still set guards on fire, which is valuable because that helps with heat propagation. A guard isn't going to die by being set on fire, I know that, but at the same time, it's going to produce heat to nearby enemies, and that's going to propagate more and more, so that anything that doesn't die is more likely to die, or at least take lots of damage. Clean Sweep is great. It's really good, and it has no downsides either. So yeah. Pack Rat is equivalent to base, though, fortunately. Pack Rat is useless, really, because of RJ250. Both of the other ammo overclocks are, unfortunately. That's just the truth of it. Clean Sweep is entering territory where it's not hugely different from Pack Rat, but its small differences are making a bigger difference. They should, Being able to achieve such high radius and also being able to change the breakpoints of things that you can set on fire is very significant. Pack Rat is just sort of left to blunder in the dark as sort of a mediator. I'd be tempted to put it in C because I think it's actually better than compact rounds, but compact rounds is worse than nothing. Really. I don't think you are a complete fourth user, actually. I'm sorry, you are, because you're reducing your radius, and you can't actually change the breakpoints of what it sets on fire. Unlike RJ250 compound, which you can. RJ250 compound is all in my fucking side. Is what it is. Is it S tier? Probably. Probably. Yeah. Yeah, it is. I hate that, but it is. Did they put it in S? I know I shouldn't do this. They did not. They put it in A. Huh. That shouldn't really change how I feel, but the truth is, the differences between it and clean sweep are not massive, and you can also use it to. It's much more flexible. You can use it to directly set on fire certain things because it's much more reasonable to take spiky grenade with it. And also the rocket jump is actually very useful, genuinely. I think RJ250 complements things like executioner actually wonderfully. RJ250 is strong as hell. There's no real way around it, but pretty useless on certain mission types, mainly elimination. Although so is clean sweep. So are they equal or are they not? Well, I think RJ250 is better. I think I have to keep RJ250 in S just because it's kind of a problem. Kind of. Not that obviously not every weapon's getting an S tier, but if the PGR is going to get one, it's going to be RJ250. So I don't have a huge problem with this, actually. So yeah. Who's next? Oh, Fatboy. Cool. What's another? Fatboy is obviously bad. It's meme. It's a meme. That's why people like it, and it is fun. Sound effects fun. Big destructive power is fun. Fallout is good. Fallout is good, which is why actually I'd rather use Fatboy than just without overclocks. So I'm actually going to put it in equivalent face. It's not actually the worst thing in the world. I think yeah, it's so fucking awkward. The problem I have with it is that it could be so good, right? If it just wasn't a meme, if it wasn't just big number for meme, if it was just a little bit of reduced ammo for the Fallout, that would be amazing. It'd be incredible. But we're stuck with what Fatboy is, and Fatboy's just something that just soaks up all your ammo for no good reason, to just be completely overkill. Some situations where it's good is things like Hive Guards and Caretakers and stuff like that. It's fine. And against absolutely ginormous hordes that you can encounter if you're playing with 3 other people, yeah, it works then. But overall, I want Fatboy to actually be good instead of just a meme. So I'm not going to pretend like it is good. Sorry, guys. Hyper Propellant, on the other hand, is good. As much as I hate to say it, I really do hate to say it, by the way, but it's fine. It's good enough. I actually think the way that they spoke about it in their video was a little bit annoying. I found myself actually. I just found myself surprised that I was actually getting annoyed at the smack that they were talking about Hyper Propellant, which I shouldn't. But I was. I was like, its damage is actually a lot better than they were implying, in my opinion. It can one-shot a lot of things. It can essentially one-shot Praetorians. Like, let's be honest, functionally it can with incendiary rounds, incendiary compound. One-shot patrol bots do shitloads of damage to dreadnoughts. Pretty much every time you shoot, it's going to bring them down to like invincibility stages. Its power is pretty absurd, actually. I'm going to be honest. I just can't deny that. And you also have a decent amount of ammo. Obviously, you completely lose AoE, but you can kind of make up for that with explosive chemical rounds or lots of different stubby builds. Grenades and your turrets can all work in conjunction as well. You can do okay, and in a lot of situations, I actually do think it's worth it for the amount of single target that you gain. It is just, in my opinion, completely losing the crowd, like clearing the potential of your secondary as an engineer is pretty sacrilegious, unfortunately. And that still does irk me. So I can't put it higher than a B. But its strength cannot be denied either. Okay, on to our good friend, the Breach Cutter. Lightweight cases. A. Obligatorily. I am actually more on waste side than I expected about this. Lightweight cases is actually very, very overrated. You're not gaining a huge amount. Laser maybe wasn't wrong about how having extra breach cutter shots is more impactful than a lot of things because you have a limited number of shots. Really, you know, it's like it's not a weapon with hundreds of bullets. So increasing the number of shots you have to breach cutter is more impactful than it is for most other weapons. So actually, that's why it's so good. I reckon. Yeah, basically, it's because the breach cutter is so strong. Just having more of it is a great idea. Well, that's all I got for that one. Yeah, no more. Roll control. D. D. Maybe. Maybe, just maybe, most slept on overclock in the game. Um, I don't think they even talked about it. Laser maybe in waste. I think they actually just ignored it, which is so insulting. It provides a niche that actually makes it better than the base breach cutter, in my opinion. Being able to hit things with a vertical beam is actually very effective for DPS against enemies that are like that, and also be able to position it to hit multiple Mactera at once, or just awkward terrain if things are on an incline. It actually overrides one of the breach cutter's biggest weaknesses. And also just creating. I use it with plasma trail most of the time. Being able to create basically plasma tunnels is really great, especially against tiny enemies. I think it's a really sorely slept on overclock. I think it provides a niche that does make it better than the base weapon. It's not hugely powerful, obviously. It's not a true strength increase, so it's going to stay at C. But yeah, man, what a badly treated overclock. Stronger plasma current is also a C. It's quite good. Increases DPS, although, let's be honest, that's fairly negligible. But it does also increase projectile lifetime, which lets you take magazine size in tier 1 pretty openly. And the reason why I actually prefer it to lightweight cases, which is why lightweight cases is obligatory in A, not preferred. But I actually prefer stronger plasma current because I can't really take lightweight cases without increasing projectile lifetime, to be honest. Because 1.5 seconds is not enough. But 2 seconds is just about enough. So I can actually have an increased magazine size instead, and actually end up with the same amount of max ammo between the two overclocks. The stronger plasma current is definitely my preferred one. It's just not huge bonuses, really. It's just a very basic one. I would recommend it if you're not interested in anything fancy, or if you somehow find Inferno to not be to your liking. Stronger plasma current is where you should go, in my opinion, not lightweight cases. So you're going in B. And honestly, I'm going to be a bastard here. I'm going to be a real bastard and go purely off feelings. I'm going to put them together. Nice. Okay, return to sender. So fucking awkward. I can see why someone would say it's worse than base. I don't think that's actually true, though. It's a bit of a hyper propellant, really. You can use it for really good single target damage, and I have to acknowledge that. It's just probably not as good as it should be. I think it should be a more dedicated version of that, although that's what spinning death is, so. Because, yeah, it makes it really overkill against a lot of stuff. Third Sender is actually much worse than I thought it was when I first started, when I first got it. We thought, oh my god, this is amazing. Not anymore, baby. Third Sender is about equivalent to base. Obviously, it's a pretty big change. It can be worse than base for some people. I can acknowledge that, but I think I'd rather use Return to Sender than no Overclock, actually. I think I would. So, yeah. Equivalent to base. High voltage crossover, however, is also a really awkward one to place because, yeah, it gives you some electric damage over time, but that's not actually useful. It's not a meaningful number compared to the amount of damage the breach cutter does. I don't think it actually changes any breakpoints. It might do. If it can kill guards, then it's worth using. Unfortunately, it just is completely blown out of the water by Inferno. I don't think you're an idiot if you use it, though. Which is why I think putting it in worse than nothing would be a little bit unfair. Maybe. It does reduce your max ammo by 1, technically. 2 if you take magazine size, because you're actually missing out on. It goes from 6 down to 4, or 3 down to 2. So, where you could be gaining max ammo by taking lightweight cases, or just gaining a lot more damage overall by taking Inferno or stronger plasma current. It's awkward. You put it in equivalent to base, it can potentially deal more damage. I guess because you're guaranteeing this effect against lots of different enemies, although obviously lots of stuff is immune to it. I'm going to leave it there. I don't particularly feel strongly enough not to. Anyway, spinning death. Oh boy, spinning death. A. Underrated, undervalued. Fantastic overclock through and through. Spinning Death rules, man. I've been using it a lot recently, and it's just getting better and better. Obviously, it did get better because they buffed it. And now it doesn't have as much of an ammo penalty, which changed a lot more than I thought it would. It made it so much more flexible. Now it really can truly be the hybrid it's meant to be. You're basically meant to use it against single target enemies, like high like tanky enemies that are in crowds. And you're also meant to use it with lures. When it comes to actual overall damage you can achieve, it's got all you need stored inside it. So I actually use lures with Spinning Death. That's how good it actually is. Obviously, completely tanking any range ability whatsoever with the Breach Cutter is significant, and also you're losing out on a lot of ammo. But you know, it takes like a normal Breach Cutter would take like 3 or even more shots to kill a Praetorian. Spinning Death only takes 1, and you have about more than half of a default Breach Cutter in terms of ammo. So Spinning Death beats base by a lot. It also beats the cleans, in my opinion, pretty easily, basically. Although, there is one more. It's Inferno. Inferno is actually difficult for me because I'm not sure if it should be an S or not anymore, because Spinning Death is a very worthy contender. Inferno basically does the same thing, but retains the range, and it's an overall damage boost on top of the normal Breach Cutter. I don't think it's actually godlike enough to be an S tier though. I think these two might actually be fairly equal now. Which is interesting. I actually like it that a weapon's most powerful overclocks are unstable. I actually really like that. Obviously, I guess that applies to the smart rifle as well. Definitely applies to the Sabato. Yeah, I think this is really cool. Like, that is Inferno. I think is really cool. Not broken though. Just not broken. That's all. I don't really know what to say about it. I definitely think it's the best overclock. I think it's just a really great generalist thing that just boosts the Breach Cutter and everything it's good at, and makes it even better, like, at some specific things. Like any enemy that suffers from fire. Like normal Breach Cutter doesn't do a crazy amount of damage to spitballers, for example, but Inferno can one-shot spitballers just casually. It's really great. So yeah. Use Inferno, it's fantastic. Probably the best overclock. It's not godlike enough to be like a better pick literally every scenario. Which is why I'm getting a bit confused about what is going to be S tier from now on, but see. Not that there isn't one coming up very soon. Efficiency tweaks is a pretty great clean, actually. In my opinion, this actually is the peak of single target damage for the Shard Diffractor. So I'm going to give it a pretty clean B. I could even go from A, actually, personally. But I'm going to keep it in B, because I think it's pretty limited. To be honest. You can't really use it for AoE, you definitely shouldn't, because pretty much every other overclock is a better option for that. It increases ammo and magazine size. I thought it would increase recharge rate, but it doesn't. Automated beam controller does, obviously, but yeah. It's just increased... Yeah, it's increased ammo and mag size. So that's a lot of added ammo, actually. Which is why it's so good. You get 575 max ammo. Take this. That's the most you can achieve. Which is a lot. It's actually higher than the optimal builds for automated beam controller can have, which is 540. You could have 580, but you shouldn't. So efficiency tweaks beats it out. But like I said, it's really just for single target, and it's also not crazy good at that. In my opinion, it's just the best. Overall. Yeah. Efficiency tweaks is good. Stops there. Automated beam controller is only slightly better than base. I sort of view it more as a grenade launcher than anything else. You know, I actually use it. I see it a bit more for crowd control than anything else. It forces you to dump your entire beam unless you want to waste like even more ammo. And it also reduces magazine size, but that actually helps with that. But it also increases, gives you a lot of ammo and a lot of fire rate as well. So you deal that damage pretty damn quickly. Fine for single target and AoE, but you kind of have to do one or the other. Otherwise, you're going to waste a lot of ammo. It's pretty awkward to use. It's a Genesis overclock. No, not Genesis, Legacy. Represents what the Shard Diffractor was in the experimental branch when it was first added, or it got added to the base game. it worked pretty differently. It pretty much always worked like this. You were forced to dump your entire magazine whenever you fired, lest you waste ammo by switching. And that's what automated beam controller is, and it's not terrible. I actually don't think it's a downgrade. I do think it pales in comparison to pretty much all the overclocks, though. It's pretty unfortunate. Feedback loop is pretty good, actually. It's pretty good. It's interesting. I don't think it's actually as strong as it should be, to be honest. I'm gonna bring it down to C. Frankly, I think its peak is actually very impressive, but at the same time, its penalties are still too much. It is to make and so that it's really not very flexible. Its effects either need to be strengthened or its penalties need to be lessened by a bit. Not a huge amount. It's pretty close to being good. It's a fantastic concept as well that is executed comprehensively. Like, it definitely feels like it's doing what it's meant to, but it's not quite there still. It's just I don't know how much I really can say about it. I used it a fair bit. I haven't just neglected it completely. I'm not like a noob. I'm not completely blind to it, but it's not quite strong enough, unfortunately. That's it, I think. Feedback loop. Look who it is. It's volatile impact reactor, aka the S tier. The S tier shard diffractor overclock. Hell yeah. Let's go. It's fantastic. It doesn't reduce your single target capabilities at all, but it adds an insanely efficient AoE alternative to how it normally works by laying magma on the ground that can completely obliterate huge groups of enemies. Nothing wrong with it against Macteria, you know, it's still the shard diffractor, which means it deletes individual Macteria very well. And there isn't really another AoE build that does great against Macteria anyway. Like, Plascrete Catalyst can, but that's only because it does so much damage in one explosion. Very difficult to get platforms to hit Macteria. So yeah, Volatile Impact Reactor is pretty damn cool. It's uber efficient crowd clearing against small enemies and tiny enemies as well. Could even be used as supplementary DPS against anything else as well, bigger targets too. Nothing wrong with that either. Its peak is insane, and it's basically clean anyway. So, easy S tier. We've got Plascrete Catalyst, which here is Endothermic Explosion. Name change isn't super important. It only represented its most significant buff, but still an unstable. It is an easy A tier. Plascrete Catalyst is really great, actually. Far more flexible than people think. I don't think it's quite a clean in the skies. I think you do lose some max ammo, and also the recharge rate is pretty gnarly, actually. Losing recharge rate. And also just using it is not the most intuitive thing in the world, but it's so strong. It's these huge 300 damage explosions. That means it one-shots guards, by the way, and Brundles. And you can do so many of those explosions. It's crazy. It's also just good in general because it doubles your damage when you're shooting at a platform anyway. Obviously, you are using your platforms as grenades with this overclock, but that's perfectly fine. Its downsides are noted, but it doesn't actually, in my opinion, have any problems as an overclock. It's a very significant boost. It changes your player style significantly to make use of it. So you definitely shouldn't use it if you're not interested in what it adds. But my god, it's really great and not a downgrade. Use Plascrete Catalyst. It's awesome. Unlike Overdrive Booster. I hate Overdrive Booster. If Overdrive Booster was a person, I wouldn't kill it. I would make sure it commits suicide. I absolutely hate Overdrive Booster with every fibre of my being. I think it's god awful. I think it's a god awful. Its existence is terrible for the game. I actually absolutely hate it. I think Hyper Propellant is way better. And I don't care. I'm not going to try and mediate my thoughts at all. I think it's completely pointless. It just sucks. I think the most, because obviously you can't switch out of it. You have to use the full beam. It's almost impossible to save ammo. That's the truth. So you kind of just have to go all the way. And if we take max ammo, all we can achieve is 450, which is 9 shots that can do a lot of damage, but Hyper Propellant with 11. So sorry, Shard Diffractor, but Overdrive Booster is complete ass. I hate it. It would be great, by the way, if it was just if it wasn't an alternate firing mode. I would love an unstable that just halves my ammo. It gives me 2.5 times damage. I'd love that because it would be so much more flexible. But I have to enter this shitty mode where I'm completely ground to a halt. It's disguising itself as a clean when it's actually a curse. It's like it's an unstable. It's a clean disguised as an unstable. It's disguised. Well, actually, it's a curse that's disguising itself as a clean that's disguised as an unstable. Oh my god, I hate it so much. I hate it so much, and I think less of you if you like it. Um, oh my god. Anyway, let's actually speed up a little bit. Gunner. Minigun. Thin drum walls, which increases cooling rate and ammo by a little bit. Basically, I'm going to... Okay, plus 0.5 cooling rate. I'm going to put it some worse than base just to make a point. And that this is the worst minigun overclock by quite a bit. That max ammo is negligible, especially in the face of how much more damage you can get just by taking more damage, and also the other ammo overclock. And also cooling rate is, on average, I think is bad, because it just goes against the best tier 5 mod. So, but either way, if heating's a problem, just take cold as the grave. But then again, the other two want you to overheat. So yeah, thin drum balls, bad pick. Sorry. A little more oomph. Better pick than people think. This goes in B. It increases spin up time, or it increases spin up speed and damage by a little bit. Both of those things are great. On a weapon with so much ammo and so much fire rate, even a little bit of damage goes a long way. And the increased spin up speed lets you start firing quicker, especially it works to double down with spin up time, but also take variable chamber pressure, which is also very good. I use both of these. I think they're both worth taking. It's probably the best overclock to make this upgrade work. Really good. Underrated as well. It's actually up there in terms of cleans. It's interesting to me that a clean that is ammo and reload speed, essentially, is, down here, wasn't nothing. Okay, Burning Hell, S. I hope everyone understands this. It's the best minigun overclock overall. The amount of damage that this thing can provide is absolutely broken. It's just not entirely broken because it does force you to put yourself in pretty awkward positions, being close range and also slowing you down while shooting means you are in danger quite often. It suits a run and gun playstyle, and it also has insane peaks as well. It's just not good against literally everything. It's just made completely insane by how much damage it actually contains within itself. It's completely absurd. Also, I don't know if they ended up making this point, but Waste was actually wrong about Burning Hell. He seemed to think that it doesn't do damage. It's just inflicts heat. No, the fire cone actually does deal damage, which is why you can just tap fire and kill swarmers instantaneously. Why it actually does deal more damage to anything. It basically makes the minigun better at the thing that it's already really good at, while not bolstering the single target really. It makes it amazing at shredding smaller enemies. It's insane. And also, obviously, it combos amazingly with volatile bullets to get that amazing single target damage. Putting it anything other than S tier would be a complete fallacy. Unlike compact feed mechanisms, which would be a fallacy to put in S. Although I do think it's better than base. Especially if you take increased damage. You now have a minigun with pretty decent damage overall, and a lot of ammo to work with. And I think you can get through it as well, because taking this lends itself to a playstyle where you lean on the minigun much more. The minigun doesn't have an ammo problem really, but if you lean on it too much, you will run out of ammo quicker than you probably would with the other primaries. So, compact feed mechanism has its place. There's a pretty decent balanced overclock. The only thing it reduces rate of fire, which is not great on a weapon like the minigun, but you gain enough ammo to make up for it, and it's still fast enough rate of fire where you can get through it, because it lets you lean on the minigun a bit more anyway. I like compact feed mechanism. It's not great. It's probably closer to equivalent to base than actually being C tier, but it's slightly better than base. So it goes in C tier. Exhaust vectoring. Exhaust vectoring is equal to a little more oomph. I think exhaust vectoring is quite underrated. I think that damage up with basically no downside is very significant. The only time it's bad is against anything at long range, but you can still hit certain things at long range, like bigger targets like that don't move, especially like spitballs or leeches. Not a problem. Perfectly fine in mid. suffer from the accuracy at mid-range or close range, obviously. Especially if you take accuracy in tier 1, which you should. So exhaust vectoring is just straight up good. It makes the gun feel slightly worse, which a little more oomph does the opposite, which a little more oomph makes the gun feel a lot better. But I think they equal each other out. I think they really do. Bullet hell. I wouldn't technically call it better than base. I think that would be wrong. But what it does, I can't ignore. It's pretty good at crowd control and clearing. It's actually just fine at. But I can't personally put it higher than C. I actually don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I used to think it was. It could be a lot better, but it also could be a lot worse. And it's different enough. And what it does is valuable enough that it is better than base, but it's different. That's the thing. As in, you could have a better time using the base minigun than bullet hell. I actually think that's very possible. So, whatever. Okay, Lead Storm. Also B, which is weird probably to a lot of people, but I don't respect Lead Storm as much as some people do. Obviously, the damage is insane, and bunny hopping is a thing. But I don't think it's worth learning. Its high skill ceiling is sort of countered out by the fact that damage is not that insanely higher than the other two damage overclocks. You know, I'd respect it a lot more if it was maybe even harder to use, but had even more damage. You know, something like that. Also, your stun being penalized is pretty bad, actually, especially because it just interrupts Praetorians and lets them attack you again even quicker. Things like that. A really negligible stun. So, unfortunately, I think it actually equals out to the other damage overclocks. But the thing is, they're all worth taking for slightly different reasons. That's the thing. It still kind of annoys me that the minigun is saddled with 3 of these. The thing. I think that is kind of odd. Yeah, it's not as bad as the Burt, which has, you know, 3 damage ones and 3 ammo ones. But either way, I don't think it's a great look for the minigun. And that's just my opinion on Lead Storm. Sorry, guys. Okay. Okay. On the head. Now, it was so odd to me that they basically denied that the Thunderhead was a good weapon, which is really bizarre. I kind of get it. I'm starting to like the Hurricane more than both of the others, if I'm being honest. But you can't deny the Thunderhead strength. If you do, you're a fool. So composite drums just adds a lot of max ammo and reload speed, but fortunately, it's really negligible. I think, you know, you do gain a lot of total damage from this that you can get through if you build for it. You can build for rate of fire. It lets you be much more flexible with the mod tree anyway. But in the context of the Thunderhead, first of all, reload speed doesn't matter because you should be using Born Ready, just objectively. Also, more ammo is, you know, you're really not going to get through it all. It's still, in my opinion, it's more of an upgrade, in my opinion, than the other ones in this tier, but it's not worth taking really over anything else. Splintering Shells is really good, actually. Pretty good. I think actually both of these should go in the same tier. Some of them got buffed recently. It means to swarm a breakpoint now without taking increased damage, but you should still take increased damage. Both are quite good. Splintering Shells is still absolutely worth using for the fact that it doesn't make the gun weaker in any way. Carpet Bomber is absolutely worth using because of how much it does actually boost the AoE. They stand alone and stand together quite well, I think. So I think a good job was done there, and they both belong pretty cleanly in B tier, in my opinion. So yeah, combat mobility. They said it's worse than base. I think it belongs in A. Am I crazy? Obviously. But yeah, there it is. There it is. Obviously, I really can't deny that its downside is felt to high heaven. The fact that they said that it should be a clean was some of the most out-of-pocket shit I've heard about this game. It increases accuracy, it increases rate of fire growth speed, and it lessens the slowdown when firing. And even more. Actually, and it also increases your starting rate of fire too. So, you know, suck it. Combat mobility is great. It's what I want to do when I don't really want to specialize. In my opinion, it is something of a clean. Obviously, I'm looking at B tier. Yeah, I think this is better than B tier. Yeah, okay. You can stay in A, which might just be me. Big. Okay, this is going to get awkward. Cause both of these could go in S, and I think they both will. Big Bertha is really great. It's good at literally everything. It doesn't make the gun any worse at AoE. And it just tears apart single targets so well. It's a beautiful little thing, or a big thing. With obviously noticeable downsides, but it has the strength to make up for it more than enough. Big Bertha is great at literally everything. It's extremely ammo efficient. You can still kill tiny enemies just as well with it as normal without suffering too much. Dreads grunts, guards, and sorts of things. Praetorians especially, it's amazing against. My god. Big Bertha, my love, you rule. But also so does neurotoxin payload. Jesus Christ, this overclock is broke as hell. But not in a way where it's actually harming the game anymore. I think it definitely was until it got nerfed, both indirectly and directly. The recent nerf was the direct one. The indirect one was just the addition of robots. So yeah, neurotoxin payload. I don't need to explain it. Just don't. We've done it so many times. We've done it so many times that we've on multiple occasions stated that we don't need to explain it because we've already done it so many times. So I'm just not going to explain it. Both of these go in S because the Thunderhead is awesome. But now, my favourite gunner weapon, the Hurricane. Recently, my favourite, by the way, a recent thing. Not entirely based on the changes that they made either. Although somewhat based on that. Overshoot feed mechanism increases, I think it's both missile flight speed and turn rate. Oh, just velocity and rate of fire. Well, I think velocity does affect turn rate. I don't know. It's equivalent to base, just straight up. It's actually the worst overclock, I think, for the Hurricane now. It's not a downgrade, obviously. It's actually okay with some single target builds, but it's the one that's least worth using. The upsides are still noticeable enough where I can't call it worse than nothing. But it's not improving the gun in any meaningful way. Unlike fragmentation missiles, which go straight up to A tier. Ooh, baby. This is the stepped on one. I actually want to give Snowing Fate a little bit of credit for giving this thing credit. Although he's not the one who convinced me to try it and end up loving it. This is my favourite Hurricane Overclock by a lot. It's pretty darn strong. It's weirdly strong, in fact. It's the one that taught me how good it is to take AoE radius instead of ammo. The Hurricane is actually something where ammo is really not what you should be using. And it's going to be an interesting pattern here, guys. I want you to watch this. So we got that there. Plasma Buster missiles, also A tier. Great at pretty much everything. Has a lot of really significant things that it excels at as well. It's just not broken because all of this stuff goes in A. Binary system. It's fantastic. Huge AoE damage that you can achieve. But it's obviously got very noticeable downsides in how it works. No, not great against flying enemies, but completely obliterate everything on the ground. Jet Fuel Homebrew, fantastic single target damage against pretty much anything. Especially great against Mactera as well, and bosses. Awesome stuff. Jet Fuel Homebrew rules. But also so does Salvo Module. An amazing hybrid that's just fantastic group, like, I almost said popping power, what the hell? Fantastic group damage, but also fantastic single target damage at close range. It's a brilliant hybrid. They all go in A. The Hurricane is great. Manual Guidance Cutoff, aka Rocket Barrage, which is actually an unstable now, actually goes in B. Rocket Barrage is definitely worth using. It's a lot of fun. It's just not actually. It's not actually a peak. You know, it doesn't fulfill a niche really. It can do certain things that's very exciting, I guess. In fact, it is going in A. I'm not even going to explain why. Although maybe I will. The biggest reason is probably that it's a massive ammo overclock that doesn't suffer from the fact that you can't get through it all, because it's massive ammo and massive rate of fire, and it feels awesome. And even though it results in lower total damage than a lot of the other ones, which is weird considering how much ammo it adds, the way that you can melt a Praetorian without it being able to turn around is just fire. And you shouldn't use fire with it though, but don't do that. Rocket Barrage is great. It's awesome that we got a new overclock, basically, even if it was replacing an old one. This shows you how great the Hurricane really is. If you were like me, you've doubted it since the beginning. Maybe you can just trust what I'm saying here, that it is actually a fantastic weapon. Okay, Bulldog. Gunner secondaries, Bulldog. Chain hit, equivalent to base. Not worth using. Technically, it increases the amount of damage you can achieve, but in a way that's really not very useful. Homebrew powder. Homebrew powder. In my opinion, it's my favourite single target thing for the Bulldog. I'll put it in A actually. I think it's very strong. Because it really doesn't have any downsides. It's just an overall damage increase. That's it. Really not that deep. It lets you one shot lots of stuff. I guess thing is, it's probably stuff that you normally can. I'm actually going to bring it down to B. I think all of these kind of belong in B, except Volatile Bullets, which goes in A. Volatile Bullets doesn't get an S because it's not actually as universally good as Burning Hell, in my opinion. Burning Hell can actually be used in more circumstances than Volatile Bullets can be. There's a lot of stuff that can't really be set on fire. Volatile Bullets, in my opinion, also isn't actually broken. Which might sound insane, but I genuinely believe it's not actually broken. It's just really strong. But you also kind of have to pair it with Burning Hell as well. But Burning Hell does not have to be paired with Volatile Bullets. That's the thing. That's part of what it comes down to. So Volatile Bullets stops at A, although it's really good, obviously. 6-shooter is, my opinion, a C tier. Like I said, I think certain things don't change. You can still definitely one-shot Grunts and Mactera Spawn with Homebrew Powder and Elephant Rounds, but I think that's not exactly the kind of thing that you should be using it for anyway. 6-shooter to me occupies a very weird territory where it's worth using, but it's weaker than the other single target options. I think Elephant Rounds and Homebrew Powder sit neatly together in B tier, actually. I think that's fair. Don't know how much I can really say about that. Elephant Rounds is just kind of strong. Weird breakpoints as well, though obviously you kind of have to use it against things that aren't going to die from it, which is kind of weird. But it's still quite good. Magic Bullets, A. Good old A tier. Very specific build you have to use for it, but that's not a problem. We should consider overclocks from the best that they can do. The best that Magic Bullets can do is absolutely A tier. Very strong, very reliable, crowd clearing, crowd control, and single target supplementary damage as well. Not perfect. Doesn't have the most coverage you might like. It's not the most ammo efficient thing in the world either. It's just really good. It's just really good. I do not think it's the peak of the Bulldog. I think there's plenty of other ways of using it that are worth using. But Magic Bullets as a crowd clearing option for a Gunner secondary is very, very, very ample. It's quite impressive, actually, that it just exists at all. You know, Magic Bullets is the kind of overclock that you would come across in your early days of playing the game. Once you're starting to figure out that there are bad overclocks, and you'd be like, oh yeah, this has got to be one of the worst ones, right? Wrong! My favourite Bulldog one. Okay, composite casings. We're on the Burt now. Composite casings is a clean that increases reload time and ammo, I'm pretty sure. I'm definitely going to check this. Plus ammo, plus 1 rate of fire. This one's pretty good, actually. This one's quite good. Feels really nice. Actually, can put it up to B. Oh no. Oh, Elephant Rounds, it's not right. It's more of a 6-shooter, actually. Yeah, composite casings is pretty strong. Ammo and rate of fire is very nice. It just feels great overall. When you're increasing DPS while also increasing total damage, that just feels awesome. So, yeah. That's a winner right there. It's just not a huge boon. Full Chamber Seal. Pretty bad. Not so bad that I'm going to make the point I don't feel like making a point and putting it in worse than nothing, but it's not good. Really not good. It's like +1 damage, I think, which on the Burt is really negligible. Yeah. When you look at experimental rounds, which is +9, or lead spray, which is +50% damage. This is not doing much. Look, +3, +3, both the upgrades. Extremely negligible. So negligible, in fact, that I'm not going to talk about it anymore. What happened here? What's that doing there? And that shouldn't be there either. That should be over here. Experimental rounds is fine. Borders on being worse than base or equivalent to base, but it's just strong enough where having that damage up but also retaining the accuracy is valuable in some situations where you're not hinging too much on your secondary, because the ammo loss is pretty brutal, actually. It's just not so much that having high damage with high accuracy isn't a bad thing. It's actually a very good thing. It's respectable. It's just not what I would recommend. Compact mags is what I would recommend. This is my favourite Burt Overclock. Big max ammo buff with the loss to fire rate. I think it's just fire rate, right? Oh, and a little bit of reload time. Not too bad, considering how much max ammo you're gaining. I take it so I can take weak point damage. But both are good. You could take max ammo as well, and you can still stun lock Praetorians. But if you take weak point damage, you can one mag a Praetorian. Compact mags is really strong. It's my favourite by quite a bit. It's not the only strong thing though, because lead spray exists as well, and it's going straight up to A tier. Can't deny the damage. Not S tier to me, because it's still pretty limited. You can do almost just as good with experimental rounds. It's just not, as a gunner, I'm not overly excited by being able to tear things apart at close range, but only at close range, It doesn't excite me too much. I do think it's very strong, though. I can't deny it. It's just not my preferred way of using the Burt, even slightly. I'm putting it A tier just out of pure respect for it. I do respect it. I just don't like it. Micro flechettes, obviously, is something. This is awkward. I don't think it's completely worthless. I think I'm going to put it equivalent to base, because I would probably rather use it than not having an overclock, but it's also so weird, so backwards, that it's kind of close to... It's not really an upgrade. It can be used to stun lock things pretty well, and obviously just stun lots of things because of how much damage, how much overall shots you have. And the accuracy is quite nice, but you're not going to be achieving anything notable with micro flechettes. That's all it is. Nothing of real note. Electro minelets. Ultramagnetic coils is S tier. We're on the coil gun now. Ultramagnetic coils is completely broken and overpowered, and I don't understand why no one's talking about it. It's one of the few things that I genuinely think needs to be nerfed. I think it's so goddamn strong, and yet no one knows about it, so it's probably never going to get nerfed, which is perfectly fine with me. But once you realise how strong it is, you can never go back. Or you can never go back to thinking there's anything stronger than it, basically. I don't really use it anymore because it's actually kind of boring, but holy shit is it broken. I can't really explain why. It's just having that extra damage and that extra size on electric trails, specifically. It just gives you so much power over everything. Basically infinite crowd clearing and the ability to scatter enemies as often as you like. It's insane. Also with the ability, the base coil gun ability to one-shot certain high-value targets just by charging it to full. Holy Jesus. Holy Jesus. Reatomizer, which is now clean, is technically equivalent to base. I hate to put it there, but it would be not. It's just not actually a downgrade. Syndrome Rules has the potential to border on a downgrade. Reatomizer is just nothing. It's literally nothing. Whereas, sure, use it if you're if it's the only one you have, but just know it's not actually doing anything for you. It should be like some kind of randomizer. It should just apply a random status effect or something interesting like that, rather than only being able to like reatomize basically nothing, especially when it doesn't work with fire or ice. Like, what is that? It's so dumb and bad. It's just not a downgrade. I wish it was. If it was still balanced, it would be worse than nothing. But they made it a clean because they know that it doesn't actually do anything. God. Backfeeding module. Equivalent to base. Not truly worth using, but not truly a downgrade either. I kind of get it as sort of like a high value target killer, where you take increased charge speed and overcharger. Oh, is it called overcharger in the coil gun? Yeah, it is called overcharger. You take this and you take charge speed, and you can knock out like things like acipitas really easily, which is kind of neat. But in general, don't care for this kind of thing for the coil gun. It's not how I use it. Single target damage is not how I use the coil gun. Okay, Mull. Let me check on Mull quickly. Downside is slightly reduced charge speed. Okay, it's going C then. It's definitely better than base. The peaks that it has are really insane, that you can get pretty impressive single target damage. Although in my opinion, it's never actually impressive enough to justify it. It's just not actually making the gun worse. But it's also, once again, not how I use it at all. Sorry, Mull. You're a cool idea, but it's just not that strong. It's just Hellfire. Easy A tier. Very, very strong, consistent group to clear, like crowd clearing. That's it. It doesn't have the flexibility of ultramagnetic coils, which is why it's in A. You have to use fully charged shots, and you also have reduced max ammo with it. So you kind of have to use it fairly specifically. Although it works with different tier 5s that you can actually use increased trail size. In fact, that's arguably better than electric trail, but both are good. You could also switch between fear and stun. I use fear with electric trail or stun with the bigger trail. It's kind of neat. You can sort of switch between the two, and it's all really strong. Yeah, it's just fantastic crowd clearing if you want to take a single target primary. Yeah, otherwise great. Use it. Simple as. Triple Tech Chambers is good for the same reasons that ultramagnetic coils is, but it's just nowhere near as good. It can be used for decent single target, and I think that is what it's intended for, although that has not become the meta. Is obviously to use it with controlled magnetic flow to just shoot loads of mini shots and create sort of like triforks basically, or electric trails. Which is why I guess you don't use ultramagnetic coils, because ultramagnetic coils is just one big trail. Triple Tech Chambers is like 3 small trails, which is go in different directions, I guess. To me, Triple Tech Chambers pales really in that it's not actually good for single target, and it's far less impactful or flexible crowd clear than the other two. I think it has to go below Hellfire, so that's why it's in B. Okay, we're finally on Scout. The final run. Once again, Trifold Volley is going to be the last thing addressed as per usual. Or is it usually Bodkin Point? I don't know. Compact ammo for the GK2. No one's using that. Gas rerouting. No point using it because of overclock firing mechanism. Homebrew powder. I think this is up there in homebrew powders. But I'm putting it in the same tier as the Bulldog one. Very, very good, solid damage increase with the way that the GK2 is now. I actually like this. I think it's actually much better than it used to be. Whereas I think some other stuff has sort of stayed just as strong as it was. Like firing mechanism, which is obviously very difficult to control, but the DPS is still a lot of fun and is definitely useful. I think B tier is actually the perfect place for this. It's never going to go higher, but it also probably shouldn't go lower. It's not weak. Adding this amount of rate of fire is dangerous and unstable, but it's also just a really good example of rate of fire, actually. Mainly because the weapon is stronger now, I think actually this gets away with it. I think before you're kind of just wasting, but now you actually have a much stronger weapon to work with than you used to. So, yeah. Overclock firing mechanism is okie dokie in my book. Goddess of Mercy is objectively an A. The only thing it reduces is magazine size, which really is not that bad, and it increases damage against everything else. At the same time, Homebrew Powder also increases damage against everything else. It can't go higher. Goddess of Mercy really should be higher because of what it does, and it can also increase its own damage via stun, but it's not the peak of single target damage on this weapon. So it's got to stay in its lane, and its lane is B tier. It's same as these other two, really. Makes me want to put Fire Mechanism lower, but it more so makes me want to put Homebrew Paladin, but it's a Mercy higher. I don't know, but I'm not putting it high because I don't think the GK2 really has an S tier. The guys might fight for a stability engine. I don't. It's definitely A though. Can shred like anything that you can actually hit the weak point of, basically. But it kind of stops there. And I think for the same reason, Electrifying Reload is also an A. Extremely efficient, not actual crowd clear, but extremely efficient crowd control, and it can kill a lot of stuff over time. It's maybe the most powerful example of electricity in the game, actually, aside from ultramagnetic coils, which the reason why ultramagnetic coils is so powerful does hinge on electric trail, to be fair. But Electrifying Reload is still really strong. It's my favourite GK2 Overclock by quite a bit. I think putting the two together, Stability Engine and Electrifying Reload, is actually very fair. They're both very good for completely different reasons, and I think that's cool. They're just not broken. Sometimes they feel like it, but I don't think they actually are. Okay, I really am considering what if I'm missing anything in S, but I don't think so. I am not sure if anything from Scout is actually going to be in S based on what I've done. That's the problem. That's the scary part, basically. Yeah, it's actually very possible that there won't be anything, which is really, really weird. I don't like that at all. Anyway, Overclock. Equivalent to base. It's an interesting effect, slightly. Whatever. Minimal clips, equivalent to base, because it's just magazine size and reload speed. Like, it's not enough of an upgrade, even if it is an upgrade. It's just not enough of one to be worth using at all. Yes! Active stability system. Oh yes, baby. Oh yes, get up there. Oh yeah, baby. A tier, very relative to the M1000 though. My favourite M1000 Overclock. I kind of think it is the best one. It's just really great at just picking things off that you need to, you know, quickly making quick work of high value targets, and also getting through bigger targets quicker as well, and also just quickly doing things. It just feels great. It's very simple. It just feels great. It's just improving the gun feel of a weapon that's already fairly strong. Which I didn't think I'd ever say. Hipster is definitely good. It's going in A tier. I can't deny its place. Waste probably would. But Hipster is strong. Holy shit, that's a lot of damage and ammo. It's kind of like Rocket Barrage, because you can get the damage off so much quicker, and you also have a lot of more ammo than your normal as well. So it's actually a pretty good example of that. I do think it soaks up too much ammo. Some of it should be shared with the base weapon, which would make everything else a lot better as well. The Hipster, play on its own, good for picking off single targets still because of high value targets if you use armor breaking. But pairs very well with cryo builds as well. And I don't even hate Hipster. I don't hate using it, so you know, it's cool. Electrocuting focus shots is still surprising me that it's any kind of popular, and I'm not going to deny it either. I'm going to put it in C. I understand the point. I just really hate it, especially because working against bosses, and that's just such a massive deal breaker for me. I'm sorry, can't allow it. Electrocuting focus shots is not my thing. No matter what argument is thrown my way, I'm never going to like it, unfortunately. I'm putting it C just out of recognition that it is an upgrade still. Super cooling chamber. Ooh, crikey. I think because it's, you know, yes, because the M1000 is okay at base, but it's still, you probably should still use an overclock, where if you're not going to, you might as well use super cooling chamber just because it's kind of fun to have that much damage in one shot. It is impressive when it goes off, although I don't think it's an overall. Oh, okay, based on my feelings alone, it has to go in the same tier as electrocuting focus shots at least. Oh, that's really disgusting, but I'm doing it. Okay, whatever. Move on. Don't want to think about it. TLC, thermal liquid coolant. This is the Drac now, equivalent to base. It's just equivalent to base. It's just heating stuff. The Drac is pretty overclock reliant, so we really can't allow for this. Aggressive venting. Aggressive venting is a clean now, so it doesn't have the ammo debuff it had before. Now you literally can just take manual heat dump and just aggressive vent all you like. You can get. It's like burning hell. Actually, it's pretty disgustingly powerful. Why would it not be in S tier? I don't know. High A, by the way, high A. It's just so much damage and it's so flexible because of manual heat dump, right? You can just use the manual heat dump like as soon as it's ready, as soon as it's just over 50% heat, that's going to burn all the grunts and tiny enemies around you and fear everything as well. Or you can go all the way to the top and set have a much bigger range and be able to set guards on fire as well. It's so flexible and so powerful with literally zero downsides. And I also love it, by the way. I love it. So I really can't not put it in S. I have to. I literally have to. For some reason, it doesn't feel like it's actually strong enough to do that, but it is. It just is. I just have to admit it. Aggressive venting goes in S. It's amazing. Use it as much as you can. Rewiring mod is underrated as hell. Going into B tier, genuinely. I think it's quite strong. I think it's good at everything. It doesn't excel at anything, by the way. That's the only thing. Although, I am going to bring it down to C. It's on the lower end. I'm bringing it up to B. It's weird. Maybe more relative to the weapon, because let's be honest, things like Elephant Round and Bullets of Mercy and Hydrogen Iron additive are definitely better than Rewiring mod. But relative to the Drac, rewiring mod definitely has a place. That's the thing. Surprisingly enough, overheating to gain ammo back sounds dubious, but until you realise it does give you a lot of max ammo, and basically forces you to use the weapon as sort of like a burst grenade launcher type thing, where it's like you just condense all the damage into one area using Plasma Splash is what I do with it. It's the other way of using Plasma Splash. It's actually really good. It is so much more worth using than you might expect. It's very bizarre that it is a somewhat restrictive playstyle, which is why it can't go higher than B. I'd say it's probably a low B, but I think it is a nuanced overclock that stands on its own quite well. It's not hugely strong. Impact deflection is now a balanced, has been for a while. It's got it just obviously it just bounces once, but it has the downside of decreased rate of fire. Impact deflection is really great. It's you take a Plasma Splash. It's a fantastic crowd clearer, but also decent prejudiced single target damage. Like it doesn't care for resistances or anything like that. It's always going to deal its full damage. If you just shoot it at something's feet, you're going to get a lot of DPS out that way. And it's just fantastic against grouped enemies as well. It's just brilliant. It's just a really good overclock. Also, obviously, something has over aggressive venting. Obviously, aggressive venting has way more total damage it can inflict, but impact deflection does have at least range on its side for its AoE component. Aggressive venting, obviously, you can zipline in. Obviously, that's what keeps it afloat. Aggressive venting, you can just zipline into groups that you want to set on fire. You are ranged by virtue of being a scout almost, so I don't think that's a huge problem. Okay, overtuned particle accelerator is very strong single target damage, but it's also very unwieldy. You have less ammo and much bigger spread. I really think it's only good for cryo, but it's also very good for cryo against frozen enemies. You can keep them in place when they're frozen. You can shred stuff. I just don't think it's good in general because Rack doesn't have any way of stunning or fearing with its single target single target builds. So you kind of need something that's very reliable. The reduced accuracy is pretty bad. So you can really only use it when things are held in place by either you or themselves, and that's never going to come from the track itself. Overtuned particle accelerator is just strong. It's a good example of an unstable, but it is beaten out by the other options, which come next. Shield battery booster is tempting to put in S. I'm no. Oh dear. Oh dear. If only shield disruption didn't exist. Shield battery booster is pretty amazing for so many reasons. It's kind of absurd. You know what? Fuck it. I don't care. It's going in S. I don't even use it that much, but it's going in S. Shield battery booster increases your damage by a lot. Your damage and velocity by a lot when you have a full shield. But it also by default increases your rate of fire and ammo capacity. So it's basically a clean as long as you can stop yourself from overheating. And obviously it boosts your shield regen. It reduces your shield recharge delay by a lot. It buffs your armor, basically. Shield battery booster is a monster. I cannot deny it. I really don't use it enough. I'm putting it an S just purely on principle of what it does. I don't see how it couldn't be an S. And I don't think I'm completely off balance for saying this. I might be. I really might be. I think for the Drac itself, these are the two peaks, to be honest. That's what I'm saying. Because thermal exhaust feedback I absolutely adore, but I think it stops at A. It's good. It's just really strong, you know? Doesn't really have a downside. It increases heat generation, but that's good because we want heat generation. We want to be in that upper level of heat to inflict as much fire as possible. It's just really good. It shreds anything, just not everything quickly. It can't shred a huge number of enemies, but it can shred any enemy, basically. So I have a lot of respect for thermal exhaust feedback. It might actually be my favourite. It's my favourite single target damage overclock on the Drac. I definitely prefer it to Shield Battery Booster, but Shield Battery Booster is just so ridiculous. That's why it gets in S tier, which is really weird. Feels weird to do that, but I think this is correct. I really do. Okay. Now we're on to the boomstick. Compact shells is better than nothing. It's, you know, good amount of damage to just good amount of ammo to just chunk grunts with, and also helps a little bit with blast wave builds if you want to do that, although that's kind of not really a thing anymore. Special powder. Special powder. Special powder. You know what it does? It's a meme, but it's also kind of useful, actually, genuinely. I don't think it rules the boomstick anymore. I think special powder is in A tier, along with another friend. Actually, no, it's not. Sorry, no, it's not. No, it's not. Special powder's in B tier. But we'll get to it. Don't worry. Stuffed shells is approximately equivalent to base. It's not changing any breakpoints, so you might as well just take compact shells. Unfortunately, it used to be the alternative to double barrel. Like, if you want to use double barrel, just use stuffed shells instead. But I wouldn't say there's any reason to use stuffed shells either. Shaped shells, there is somehow a reason to use. I actually like shaped shells, genuinely. I'm not going to put it higher than C because I don't truly believe that. But it's really nice. I like using it with arm breaking and incendiary compound to kill like things like guards and brundles. It actually feels kind of nice, and also being able to one shot like tri-jaws from actually a decent distance is actually really nice as well. I combined it with impact deflection. I swapped it out from jumbo shells, and I actually had a really good time, which really surprised me. Shape shells is surprisingly good. It's not like a peak of strength though. Jumbo shells is, however. Jumbo shells is probably the other B tier. There's a time where I would have put it at A tier because of how much it dominated the boomstick, but not anymore. Jumbo shells is just really strong though. It results in higher total damage, which is good because it reduces ammo while increasing damage per shot by a lot. So it's very important that it has higher total damage than normal, or than some builds basically. You know, it lets you chunk things very well. At mid-range, you can obliterate, like, you know, things like high-value targets. You can absolutely obliterate. You can do good damage to Praetorians as well. And even Oppressors, it's okay again. Bosses is also just fine against too. It doesn't pale in comparison, though, but it does fall slightly behind what Double Barrel is now as an insane blast wave overclock that is also somehow the best single-target option. Double Barrel is so bizarre. It can obliterate condensed groups of bugs, but also do massive damage to single targets. It's really cool. I do not think it completely dominates the boomstick, but I do think it's actually the strongest thing it offers now. That's just really so bizarre. Obviously, the only thing it takes away is the fact that it halves your ammo in exchange for being, multiple shots in one. 2 shots in one. So it's 220 blast wave damage in one if you're building it correctly. It's just ridiculous. You know what I think, by the way? The boomstick has a massive problem with the blast wave. Not with the blast wave, but with incendiary compound. But I think improved blast wave and incendiary white phosphorus should be in the same tier, really. I think that's pretty objective, actually. I mean, it's still probably not going to change much, but whatever. Boomstick is clawing its way out of being a really sad weapon. Okay. Zukov. Minimal magazines, increases rate of fire and reload speed. Feels beautiful. It's like butter. It's not great because it's not what I would really recommend using the Zukov for at all, really. It's actually fine for like single target things that don't use embedded detonators. But it's not great. I think it's slightly better than base because of how good it feels. It's increased reload speed and rate of fire. You just go through ammo and then immediately, like, instantaneously reload. It feels really nice. It's just like butter. It's a really good base improvement. Those custom casings, though, I think, it's not an entirely negligible amount of ammo added, and it's just more damage contained within your magazine. And the reduced rate of fire actually helps sort of make it feel a little bit more steady. I actually like custom casings as a single target overclock. It can't rise above B tier. It's not actually that strong, but for me, it's actually my favorite Zukov overclock, which is really weird, but true. I'm gonna leave it there though. It's just okay. Cryo Mindless also gets C tier. It's too awkward to be really strong anymore, to be honest. Especially in comparison to Cryo Bolts, which are really strong. It still does what it does, but it's just completely outcompleted now. Its usefulness is not completely lost, but in a vacuum, basically. But in the broader sense of the game, it's not worth using anymore. The only reason it's better than base is because it's conducive to a very specific build that makes it more useful than a base Zukov. That's it. Embedded detonators is still S tier. Unfortunately, because it's the best thing in the Zukovs, and it is genuinely very strong. It earns how much ammo it consumes, basically. It really just does. It's insane single target. You could also use it to just tear apart crowds if you can spray and pray like that. It really has no issues. Obviously, it's got big downsides with its ammo, but it has no problems in terms of how it functions. It's a really beautiful piece of kit, and I recommend using it wholeheartedly. It feels so wrong that the only driller S tier is explosive reload, but it's just as potent on the weapon, really. And I can't think of another driller overclocks that would really belong in S tier, to be honest. Yeah, I don't think there is one. There really isn't. The only one I would even think about is Mega Power Supply, but okay, gas recycling for the Zukovs is not better than the others, unfortunately. I wish it was, but it just isn't. This paints a picture of the problem with the Zukovs. They really are dominated by one thing. Gas recycling is fine. I think it might be slightly better than the others objectively. I am actually going to give it a B because I don't hate using it. I appreciate what it's trying to do, and I think it does it okay. I think relative to the Zukov, it's a B tier. I think it doesn't quite earn how much accuracy you lose. I think losing weak point damage and having your movement speed reduced are actually good enough, genuinely. I think gas recycling needs the accuracy penalty gone. I don't think it's earning that. Or, better yet, give it a small ricochet thing, where it ricochets off armor as well. That would be pretty cool. That would really make it sufficient of what it's supposed to do, which is like a crowd clearer, just through brute force. It doesn't quite do what it's supposed to do, but it is worth using within its own right somehow. Doesn't go much further than that though. All right, final weapon, crossbow. Okay, let's do it. Quick fire, equivalent to base, but tempted to make a point, by putting it worse than nothing, but that's not really true. It's just not worth using even slightly, because the specialist, right up to A tier. Specialist is awesome. It's conducive to a lot of builds, particularly just explosive chemical bolts. The best way of using that is just by having lots of them, and same with taser bolts. Specialist is great. I love it. It's my favorite overclock for the bolt shark. Yeah, it's just great. Just really great. And obviously it has no downsides. It's just not an absolutely insane peak. It's just like, it's not broken at all. It's just a really great thing for the bolt shark to have. Cryo bolts are quite good. They're much better than cryo minelets. I don't think they're insane. I think they're actually going to stay in B tier, surprisingly. I think they can be used against lots of things effectively. It can be much more precise. It's like 2 for a Praetorian, 2 for a breeder, like 1 for a warden, things like that. It's very nice to sort of learn that stuff. Decent against grunts, although it doesn't do grunts just quite as well as firebolts do. But it's probably the best way to freeze things as scout. And obviously, really bolstered by the fact that you still retain your special bolts. That makes it great as well. Cryo bolts is really cool. So go ahead and use it, because you'd be doing yourself a favor. It's just not great all the time. Weird. I don't know. Maybe it's just not quite strong enough to be higher than B, but it's still good most of the time. Maybe. Firebolt. This is awkward. Because I think it's amazing. I think it's really amazing. I'm not sure if it's an S tier though. If any of them are going to be, it would be firebolts. The problem with firebolts is things that it can't be used against. And let's be honest, you can get all the single target damage you're ever going to need out of your primary as a scout. It just... You just don't need it to be good against everything. This will completely take care of hordes of enemies. Unfortunately, it's just grunts, and that's why it's staying in A tier. I just realised. Basically, Firebolt is the absolute peak of dealing with grunt hordes, but it kinda just stops there, unfortunately. Can't really use it against Mactera, can't use it against robots, barely works against Rockpox. It's just so good at what it does, but what it does is far more limited than people actually think, I reckon. I might be wrong for keeping it in A tier. I do think it and Specialist are actually fairly equal, though, to be honest. I think Firebolts is the better way of using pheromone darts. I definitely agree with that. But I think the two belong together. And I think together, if they're going to stay together, it has to be in A tier. I wish Firebolts could go higher, but I just don't think it can. I agree with what we said when we said that it was an optimal overclock. I actually don't think it's broken though. It's cool that it exists and what it can actually do, but yeah, okay. Bodkin points is okay. As very, very quick, sort of forceful, like crowd clearing. You can still have your special bolts. You can take I take explosive chemical bolts with Bodkin points, and that's pretty cool. I like that a lot actually. I recommend doing that. Bodkin points can just, just slam a couple grunts or Macteras whenever you need it to, basically. It's a pretty clean B. I'd say probably maybe on the lower end of B actually, but definitely worth using. Trifork Volley, on the other hand, is a really awkward one actually. It's a final overclock, of course. It's definitely better than base. It can let you achieve really high single target damage, but I think in that realm, it's not quite beating out embedded detonators or jumbo shells or double barrel. it might be equivalent to jumbo shells, which is why I think I'm going to give tri-foot volley a B as well. Bodkin points and tri-foot volley are, well, neither of them are perfect basically, but they're both still pretty decent basically, but they need some attention, I think. They are both on the lower end of B. They still, I think, are still in B. They're still definitively worth using. Yeah. Okay, that's it. I think the only thing that matters is if you're happy with S tier. Voice reload, yes. Executioner, yes. RT250, yeah. Volatile Bumper Mixture, yes. Burning Hell, yes. Big Bertha. No. I'm going to bring Big Bertha down one. High A, in fact, I'm going to make sure it's right at the beginning of Gunner. Here. Just after combat ability. I think that's probably better. Big Bertha's great at everything, but it's not, I don't think it's actually broken. And it's also pretty slow when it comes to things like oppressors, and sometimes even dreadnoughts. It doesn't do quite enough damage quick enough. Oh man, it's really just me trying to avoid having two on the same weapon, but should I avoid that? You know what, I think Big Bertha is, I think it's better than Jet Fuel Homebrew or Standard Module, to be honest. So yeah, actually it can stay in S. I think I should go with what my instincts told me originally. Neurotoxin, yes. Ultramagnetic Coils, yes. Aggressive Venting, and Shield Battery Booster. I can't confidently say Shield Battery Booster. The truth is, I don't have enough experience with it to actually do this. But the thing is, what if I do by the time this video comes out? That'd be pretty awkward. But now it's got to be down in A, because otherwise I'm probably lying to myself. I think Aggressive Venting is the true, no penalty OP track overclock. So that's why that goes in S. And Embedded Detonators in S as well. Okay, I'm happy with that. That's my that's all the overclocks ranked just by me personally. According to Waste and Laser Maybe's criteria, or at least according to their tiers, we got Worse Than Nothing, we got approximately equivalent to Base, we got C, B, A, and S tier. I think this is pretty good. So would I do more solo tier lists? I don't really want to be honest. Probably the only time I'm going to do this actually, but it was a great time for me. Took a long time. Definitely felt, even though it's only, it's 2 hours 12 minutes, it's pretty long, but it still felt longer than that to me actually. I definitely enjoyed this, but this was a lot to get through. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please make sure to like, subscribe, and click that bell. We do lots of Deep Rock stuff, and we continue to do Deep Rock stuff. If you want to stay informed on Deep Rock, definitely subscribe. But yeah, that's this is Harry from Barrel Vision. This was my ultimate overclocks tier list, and I'm out of here. Take care, guys.